Okay, I want you to imagine a clock ticking inside your walls right now. It's totally silent, but it's there. Tick, tick, tick. When a water leak happens in a home, you're suddenly up against a strict, unforgiving 24 to 48-hour window. That is literally all the time you have before microscopic mold spores, which, by the way, are naturally floating around in the air right now, find that moisture and begin aggressively colonizing your wet walls, your floors, and your structural framing. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the invisible and, honestly, often misunderstood dangers of structural water damage. Because it's not just about mopping up a puddle on the floor, it's a highly technical battle against moisture. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to look at some real-world data from a restoration provider in Bessemer, Alabama, and use that as our perfect storm case study. So, here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the hidden ticking clock. Number 2, Bessemer's perfect storm. Number 3, 3 categories of contamination. And finally, number 4, the science of drying. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the hidden ticking clock, where every single minute counts. Here's a pretty terrifying reality. Water doesn't just sit innocently on your floor waiting for you to go grab a towel. It's an active invader. It migrates rapidly, creeping up inside drywall and insulation through capillary action. It pools under your hardwood floors. It hides inside your ceiling cavities. Basically, it's silently destroying your home's structural integrity and setting the perfect stage for a massive mold infestation long before you ever see a single brown stain on the paint. Moving right along to section 2, Bessemer's perfect storm, a really fascinating case study in environmental risk. So Bessemer sits in a humid subtropical climate. We're talking about an annual rainfall of over 54 inches, combined with sweltering summer humidity levels that regularly top 90%. When you already have 90% moisture just hanging in the air, trying to structurally dry out a house is incredibly difficult, and it creates this environment where mold thrives almost instantly. Throw in local flash flood risks from places like Valley Creek, and you've got a literal recipe for disaster. But the threat isn't just coming from the sky, right? It's coming from the ground. Bessemer is built on expansive red clay soil. Viscerally, what this means is the very ground your house sits on acts like a massive swelling sponge during those intense spring thunderstorms. When that clay gets wet, it expands, literally crushing against foundation walls. Then, when it dries, it shrinks away. This constant push and pull creates these tiny hairline cracks that channel groundwater straight into basements and crawl spaces. And we have to add the hidden dangers inside the walls themselves. A lot of the local housing stock there was built during the early 1900s industrial boom, which means original plumbing. We're talking old cast iron drain lines, actively corroding from the inside out, eventually leaking raw sewage right into the wall cavities. Or galvanized supply lines that develop these tiny hidden pinhole leaks. They just spray a fine mist of water behind your drywall for weeks, completely undetected, until the damage is absolutely catastrophic. Let's transition over to section 3, 3 categories of contamination. Because as you'll see, not all water is equal. Take category 1, for example. This is a clean water leak, like from a broken supply line. It generally just requires standard extraction and structural drying. But then jump down to category 3, black water. This is severe. We're talking hazardous contamination from a sewage backup or outdoor flash flooding. A category 3 disaster demands strict adherence to health department regulations. You can't just dry it out. It requires the complete physical destruction and removal of infected porous materials like drywall and carpets, plus intensive EPA-registered antimicrobial treatments. Which brings us to our final section, number 4, the science of drying, the professional methodology. When you map out the critical response window, time is absolutely everything. When disaster strikes, let's say, boom, 2 a.m. pipe burst, professionals stage their equipment to hit a strict 60-minute emergency extraction target. Why so fast? Because they are racing to beat that 24-hour mold colonization window we talked about earlier. If they can extract the standing water immediately, they can safely transition into the 3 to 5 day structural drying period without the added nightmare of a full-blown mold outbreak. The industry actually relies on a very strict set of protocols known as the ICRC S500 standard. This methodology requires 3 distinct phases. Phase 1. Extracting the water immediately with heavy-duty equipment. Phase 2, the drying phase. This means running commercial dehumidifiers and high-velocity air movers, applying those EPA-registered antimicrobials, and doing daily moisture mapping. And finally, Phase 3, verifying complete dryness through rigorous testing before any reconstruction or drywall replacement even begins. Now, there is a massive contrast between a well-meaning amateur DIY approach and this professional standard. An amateur approach usually relies on small shop vacuums and household box fans. Unfortunately, that just leaves deadly moisture trapped inside the wall cavities and subfloors, basically inviting mold and wood rot. The professional standard, on the other hand, utilizes truck-mounted extractors capable of pulling thousands of gallons of water per hour, and they pair that with thermal imaging cameras to literally see through the walls and find that hidden dampness, ensuring absolutely nothing is missed. In fact, to prevent structural decay and, avoid those voided insurance claims down the line, professionals do not guess when a room is dry. The data shows that drywall moisture has to be rigorously monitored with calibrated meters and brought below a critical threshold of 12%. For concrete, it's got to drop below 4%. If a contractor seals up a wall before hitting those exact numbers, that trapped moisture is inevitably going to lead to a failed insurance claim and a massive headache a few months later. As we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a lingering thought. We've seen the data. We've seen how fast water moves, how soil expansion literally crushes foundations, and how hidden pipes corrode from the inside out. So consider your own property for a second. What hidden vulnerabilities are currently masked behind your perfectly painted walls, just waiting for the next big storm to hit? Thanks so much for joining me today to explore the fascinating, invisible science of water damage.